This is a special quick tip for all beginning watercolor painters, those who've never painted with watercolor before, and children of all ages. I gave to my nephew Jackson a watercolor kit for Christmas, and everybody was so excited at Christmas that we didn't have time to get into it. I didn't realize there weren't instructions anywhere about how to load a watercolor kit and then what to do with the watercolor. So this is for you, Jackson. Before we get started, I want to point out one thing. Watercolor comes in two different ways. Either in pans like this, where the watercolor is in these little solid blocks of color, or in tubes like this. Now, there are 4 different sizes of watercolor tubes. Tiny ones like this, and then they go on up to larger ones like this. Usually, if you're getting a beginner's watercolor kit, the tiny tubes are probably what you find in there. And if you've never painted with watercolor before, you might think there's not much paint in a little tube like that. But that's what I want to show you. There is lots of paint in this little tube. You can get lots and lots of color from this when you go at it the right way. To get started, I want to first of all show you some variations on what you might have received. Now, watercolor palettes and little kits come in all different shapes and sizes. So you might have received one that looks something like what I have here, or yours might look totally different, but the components are the same. You're going to have pans, the little areas here, little loading areas for the watercolor itself, and you're going to have a mixing area like this in this palette. This is the mixing area in this little palette. This is the mixing area in this little palette. Or you might have no mixing area. You might just have a little palette that is in addition to the mixing area. Or if that didn't come with your kit, you might just need to get one of Grandma's plates. It doesn't matter as long as you have something. Even something like this might have come with your kit. But whatever came with your kit, you're going to have the color, and you're going to have little pans to put the color in, and you're going to have the mixing area. You also need brush. You need a little container for your water. Some of the kits come with containers, some that don't, but any kind of a little water container will work just fine. And paper. And when you're beginning watercolor, you're just beginning to discover it. Almost any kind of a nice drawing paper or watercolor paper is fun to work on. Once you get further into watercolor, then the special watercolor papers will work for you a lot better. But while you're just getting familiar with it, these things are more important. So now here's what you'll need to do. If you received the kit that just had the empty pans and tubes, you need to load the tubes first. Now this is important. Load the entire tube. Well, let's use another color for this because I already have that color in it. Okay. Fill the, I said load the tube, I didn't mean that. Fill the pan full. And that might mean emptying the entire tube. If the larger tubes came in your kit, you're probably going to have some left over. But it's important that you fill this little pan with color. Now, once you finish your first painting session, you don't have to wash that out or anything. You just leave it alone and close your kit, and the paint is going to set up or get solid like it is in these sets. So that makes it easier when next time you start to paint to re-wet it and begin painting again. But while your paint is still wet, this is what I want to show you. This is very important. So you have your brush, and the brushes usually come in round shapes like this one or in flat shapes like this one. just play with whatever brush came with your kits. You'll need a paper towel that you will fold into a little pad like this. Alright. Need a little container of water. Now wet the brush, and then either sling it a little bit like that or wet it, and if it's still dripping, just touch it to the paper towel a little bit like that, so the water that's in the brush doesn't come dripping off. Then you just, this is important, this is the most important thing I'll show you in this entire little demonstration. Just touch the tip of the paint, the wet paint, with your brush, then bring it over to your palette and sort of wiggle the brush around in it just a little bit until the water and the paint are mixed together. And so you will have a nice little pile of paint. You see, I picked up just a tiny, tiny little bit of paint with the brush, and look, I have this nice little pile of color here. Now, let me show you something on the paper. Let's see here. When I stroke that onto the paper, look how much color I've got. Nice, rich color. All that nice, rich color from just that little bit of paint. And with watercolor paint, when you want the color lighter, you dip the brush into a little bit more water, work it. If you still have color in the brush, all you have to do is to dip it in a little water and kind of work that a little bit against your palette, your mixing area, and there you see you have a lighter color. Alright, now let's make it even a lighter color. I'll just put some water over here. Let's put even more water over here and mix the brush, use the brush to kind of mix the water with the paint, and there's, see, even a lighter color. So the darker colors from each, the darker values from each color will come with not quite so much water. The lighter values will come with more water. Now, one more little thing I want to show you to play with is you can wet the paper first, like this, and by wetting the paper first, you can get some fun things to happen. Now let me get this up. There we go again. Water, paint, mix it into the brush really good, and now watch what happens here. Isn't that neat? This is called wet and wet, and this is called, what I did here was called wet on dry. That's probably all the technique that you need to know right now to play and have fun with this. One other thing I want to show you. Put this aside. Next time you go to paint, chances are your fresh color is going to be solidified like this. And so what you'll need, or what I enjoy, is a little water bottle like this, filled with a little spray bottle like this. And you'll need to spray your paint, just spray the water on it, and let it sit for a couple of minutes. And then, starting again with a damp brush, watch what you can do by just working the brush around in the paint. Watch how the water will melt the paint and make a nice rich color. And there you are. Now, once again, you have nice rich color, and once again, you'll use the same principle of the water in the brush, the amount of water in proportion to the paint, creating the lighter colors, and the wet on wet wash. If you take those three ideas, you will be well on your way towards understanding how watercolor painting works. And there's your quick tip.